Imagine a world where evolution is in a slow march of a millennia, but something you can see, feel, even control. A place where animals mutate before your eyes, not due to science gone wrong, but because you are rewriting the rules of life itself. What if I told you Reanimal might be one of the most underrated game experiences of the year? Not because it's perfect, but because it dares to be different. Today, we're going deeper than review scores, deeper than trailers. We're jumping headfirst into a strange, beautiful, unpredictable world. So what exactly is Reanimal? At its core, this is a narrative exploration game with survival and evolution mechanics, but that description barely scratches the surface. It blends elements of open-world exploration, simulation, and choice-driven storytelling. You aren't just playing in this world, you're shaping it. The overarching idea is deceptively simple. You're a wanderer in a post-collapse ecosystem, surrounded by animals that are changing, evolving in ways no one fully understands. From there, everything gets wild. If I had to pin a genre on this thing, it would be like if The Long Dark and Spore had a baby with Journey and Reanimal was born. But the real heart of the game isn't about killing things or stacking loot. It's about connection, consequence, and discovery. The premise sets up a world where every choice ripples outward, not just in cutscenes, but in the behavior of the very creatures around you. Reanimal was developed by Novus Wild Studios, a small indie team that cut its teeth on simulation and narrative hybrids. They aren't a massive studio, backed by endless budgets. They're a tight-knit group obsessed with ecosystems, storytelling, and creating games that feel alive. The previous titles showed flashes of ambition, but the Reanimal feels like their breakthrough. Like they finally found the project that lets their strength shine. So, the reception to Reanimal has been widely interesting, and honestly tells you almost as much about the game as playing it does. Critics have been mostly positive, with a Metacritic score sitting around 80 across platforms, and a solid user score too. It's not just the numbers, the tone of that feedback matters. Many reviewers praise Reanimal for atmosphere, visuals, tension, and bold storytelling choices. Critics describe it as more intense, more disturbing, and more emotionally impactful than even the Little Nightmares games that Tarsier Studios is known for, but without relying on cheap scares. One recurring line you'll see is short but unforgettable. Players and critics alike keep pointing out that the experience is relatively brief, often clocking in around 4 to 8 hours depending on playstyle, but that every minute feels purposeful. Even on the Steam storefront, Reanimal has very positive user reviews, with about 80% players recommending it. But it's not universal love. Some folks have mixed feelings, especially when it comes to how the story lands and how much gameplay variety there is. A handful of players online felt the narrative was hard to follow, or that certain encounters didn't feel as mechanically rich as they looked, which is totally fair for a game that leans so hard into mood and design over traditional plot beats. And of course, the price versus length debate is real. Plenty of players grumbled that the runtime feels short for a full-priced game, but there's part of why there's such vocal discussion, not just about the quality but the value of experience. But here's the key takeaway from this reception. Reanimal isn't a game people barely notice. It's one people are actively talking about, which says a lot for a horror title that isn't a sequel or an established franchise. Now let's talk story, which is where Reanimal really gets weird in the best possible way. Unlike many games that lay out a narrative through big cutscenes or text dumps, Reanimal tells its story through environment, moment-to-moment tension, and symbolism. You control a brother and sister duo, alone in the world that feels broken, nightmarish, and autobiographical, like someone's darkest memories have been stitched into reality. The official synopsis says, you're exploring a hellish version of home, trying to rescue missing friends and escape, but that barely scratches the surface. The world blends domestic spaces, industrial wastelands, warped landscapes, and grotesque creatures in ways that you feel unsettling and poetic at the same time. You don't just watch the kid's journey, you feel it. One minute you're navigating a foggy marsh, the next you're cycling through a worn-torn zone where every creature and every shadow seems to test your nerves. There are moments of clarity, brief dialogue from the siblings, visual storytelling through journals and environmental clues, but the game doesn't hand you the meaning on a silver platter. Instead, you piece things together, and much of the emotional impact comes from what's implied. Some players find that mysterious and haunting, while others find it confusing or underdeveloped. The story relies on atmosphere and implication more than exposition, and that's a design choice, not an oversight. If you feel like you're uncovering a world scarred by past horrors, woven with allegory and hinted at through imagery rather than text. That means it's subjective, and different players will come away with different interpretations. Exactly the kind of thing that keeps people talking long after they finish. Let's get into what actually happens when you play Reanimal, because beyond the horror and the visuals, the moment-to-moment gameplay is where a lot of its personality comes alive. At its heart, Reanimal marries survival horror, cinematic platforming, and stealth mechanics in ways that feel both familiar and refreshingly ambitious. You're navigating environments that combine exploration, like puzzles, chase sequences, and occasional combat. There aren't traditional RPG stats. Instead, progress is about learning the world and learning when to hide, when to run, and when to fight. Some standout mechanics include cinematic stealth. You'll often sneak through shadow corridors, timing your movements against hostile creatures or environmental hazards. The tension isn't there just for scares, it actually feels integrated with the story's mood. Chase and evasion. There are sequences where you're literally running for your life. There aren't minigames, there are emotional peaks built into the world's pacing. Environmental puzzles. Nothing is overly obtuse, but Reanimal uses puzzle moments to break up tension and make exploration feel like a discovery rather than padding. Co-op integration. The game supports both single player with AI companion and local or online co-op. And the way the siblings interact, whether you control both or share with a friend, adds a surprising emotional layer to every encounter. Some players and reviewers note that the gameplay doesn't reinvest every mechanic with equal weight. Certain sections feel more like atmospheric presentation that interacts with depth, especially combat, which is intentionally limited and tense rather than deep or flashy. The pacing isn't about endless action, it's about rhythm, a slow crawl through eerie spaces, punctuated by jolting moments of chase and terror. And yes, the slowness is intentional, but it's also a point of debate among players. One of the coolest things people talk about? The boat mechanics. You literally travel between locations by water, and those sequences mix navigation with ambient dread and narrative progression in a way you don't usually see in horror titles. So while Reanimal doesn't always reinvent mechanics like some AAA action game, it blends them into its world in thoughtful ways, and that's what makes it feel like more than just a spooky platformer. So after sitting with Reanimal for a while and after thinking about its story, its pacing, its mechanics, its reception, here's where I honestly land. This isn't a game trying to impress you with scale, it's not chasing trends, it's not screaming for attention, it's deliberate, it's restrained, and sometimes it's frustrating because of that, but when it works, it really works. The tension feels earned, the world feels handcrafted, and the sibling dynamic, especially in co-op, gives the horror something a lot of games forget: heart. Yes, it's short, yes, it's not mechanically deep in every section, and yeah, not every narrative thread lands perfectly, but I'll tell you this, I'm still thinking about it, I'm still replaying certain scenes in my head, and any game that sticks with you after the credits roll, they're doing something right. Reanimal might not be for everyone, of course, but if you love atmospheric horror, environmental storytelling, and games that value mood over mechanics, this might quietly become one of your favorites this year. I respect it for daring to be that. If you've played it, tell me, did the ending land for you? Did the ambiguity work, or did it leave you wanting more? And if you haven't played it yet, are you more curious now or more cautious? Drop your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and let me know what game we should break down next. Until next time, see ya.